Chapter 1055. Gu Meng Meng turned to look at Leah. Leah swayed his tail and didn't say a word. He just cast his gaze to the side. Gu Meng Meng followed his gaze. Jiaoyu. Gu Meng Meng blurted out instinctively. Leah nodded. Qi Xian and Kanwo are already in charge of Zacharias. If Hede and Jiaoyu are still treated like children by your side, they will probably feel very disappointed. Although they don't say it, wolves are not animals that can be tied to one side like dogs. Gu Meng Meng sighed. Sigh, children are no longer up to their mothers. Their wings have hardened at just 1 year old. She hadn't even enjoyed the times when her children hugged her thighs and acted coquettishly. But did she really have to tie her children up for her own selfish reasons? Just as Elvis had said, as long as you are happy, what's the big deal about raising a bunch of useless wolf cubs? Raising them until they were useless, you guys discuss it, I don't care anymore. Gu Meng Meng buried herself in Elvis's arms, not wanting to say anything else. Leah chuckled as he walked over and called Hede and Jiaoyu to his side. After a brief discussion, the matter was settled. Sauder had always been a turbulent place and Cole's power was deeply entrenched here. The newly joined 16 tribes were also unstable, and if they wanted to control the situation, they had to have the ability to suppress everyone. They had to be at least at the level of Elvis or Wabi. But Gu Meng Meng liked Saint Nazir more than Sauder, so Elvis could not stay. Wabi was restricted by the seasons. He had to stay in the Snake King Valley during the winter and dry seasons, so he could not stay here either. Peter could come over to control the situation. He also had the ability to manage the tribe, but he had to take care of Natalie and the 6 little ones by himself. He could not do anything else. Moreover, Natalie only had one partner, Peter. Once Peter was attacked and pinned down, Natalie and the 6 little ones would be in a protective vacuum state. By then, as long as they killed Natalie, they could easily kill Peter. So if Peter were to take over Sauder, he would have to at least wait until the 6 little ones had grown to a certain level. Now that he could not find a suitable strong warrior, he could only use his status to suppress others. The blood of the mighty beast deity, the sons of the mighty messenger, with the 2 of them holding the fort here, Saint Nazir, Sauder and Zacharias would become an impregnable iron triangle. No matter which of them was attacked, the other 2 would immediately launch a frantic counterattack to rescue them, and they would do so regardless of the cost. There was a kind of outstanding ability called, My Mother is Gu Meng Meng. The dry season was not over yet and Gu Meng Meng was not in a hurry to leave. So Leah happened to be free and could bring Hede and Jiaoyu to familiarize themselves with government affairs. Because of what happened that night, Sandy was quite frightened. Gu Meng Meng did not let her return to her original stone house, but let her stay in the stone castle temporarily. On one hand, it was to comfort Sandy, and on the other hand, it was more convenient for Leah to treat Colin and the rest. And from Sandy's explanation, Gu Meng Meng knew that she had misunderstood Cole on at least one matter that day. That was Cole sitting on the heavily injured Colin and the rest, not to bully them, but to protect them. Sandy said that Cole was sitting there and said, I want to see who has the ability to take a life from under my feet. Chapter 1056. The dry season gradually passed and Sandy slowly walked out from the trauma of that night. Other than being extremely reliant on Gu Meng Meng, everything else was fine. Jiaoyu and Hede were busy following Leah every day, but they always had confident smiles on their faces and did not feel exhausted. This made Gu Meng Meng feel proud and a little disappointed at the same time. Her children were too independent and had their own opinions. Looking at the 6 little ones running around Sandy with hidden bitterness, Gu Meng Meng sighed in her heart. How good would it be if her sons could stay young and stick to her like this? Little Munchkin was still very affectionate with Gu Meng Meng and often hung onto her, rubbing and licking her body. This greatly satisfied Gu Meng Meng's motherly heart. The dry season passed quickly. Although it was not peaceful, at least they had survived. Oakley's death was actually quite a blow to Gu Mengmeng. After all, they were friends. Even if he did something unfavorable to her, wasn't the greatness of love because of its selfishness? If what Oakley did had succeeded, it might have caused some trouble for Gu Mengmeng. But what was the point of causing trouble between friends? What made Gu Mengmeng the most unhappy was that he was clearly in trouble but refused to seek help from her. He could only bear the burden of guilt and worry alone. If he was still alive, Gu Mengmeng would probably beat him up until he could not take care of himself and scold him. Then, let Leah treat his injuries and let Bloom take good care of him. Unfortunately, reality cruelly took away the ifs and only left the result. She wanted to beat him up and then forgive him. But he did not even give her the chance to do so. He just rudely left a sorry and disappeared forever. The first rain of the rainy season announced the end of the dry season. The water sources of the various tribes gradually became plentiful and the number of people coming to fetch water gradually decreased. In the end, Leah gave an order that Sauter's water wells would not be open to the public until next year's dry season. When Leah was free, he came back to play with Gu Mengmeng and threw all the administrative matters to Heda and Jialu. The bunch of stubborn elders in the Elders' Council were surprisingly obedient and none of them dared to find trouble with these two little wolf cubs. Instead, they all tried their best to assist them. Gu Mengmeng did not feel anything but Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He thought to himself, "Are you afraid that you will become the next Oakley and be targeted by Cole?" Leah could understand at least 80% of what Cole was doing. He seemed to be forcing Gu Mengmeng step by step, but he was always pushing her towards the path that was most beneficial to her objectively, and even cleared away all the obstacles along the way. But this method, Gu Mengmeng would probably never accept it in her entire life. Elvis had been very busy recently and did not have much time to accompany Gu Mengmeng as Colin's injuries were gradually recovering. Moreover, Elvis realized that Colin had already reached the peak of 3rd level. He must have accumulated a lot of battle experience before Cole arrived and was just short of breaking through the bottleneck. Previously, because he was injured, he had to recuperate. Now that he had recovered, he had to immediately break through the boundary of level 3 and enter level 4. His combat power would increase exponentially. Colin himself was particularly enthusiastic. He didn't want to see Sandy curled up in the corner, shivering. It was still drizzling. It was already the 3rd day. Chapter 1057. Gu Mengmeng stood up and walked up to him. She hugged him gently. "Little shit, you are here." Wabi was taken aback. He reached out and poked Gu Mengmeng's head. "Did something go wrong with you?" Normally, shouldn't she give him a tight slap the moment they met and send him flying? "Little shit, are you looking for a beating again?" Why was the way she opened up was different today? Gu Mengmeng giggled foolishly. She bounced her head back onto Wabi's chest like a roly-poly doll. His body was different from Elvis and Leah. His body was always cold, as if it could not be warmed up no matter what. Moreover, Wabi was actually quite handsome, but Gu Mengmeng just couldn't sense any hormonal signals from him. Perhaps this was the state of two people who both thought highly of each other but didn't have any romantic feelings for each other. Perhaps this was the state that existed when two people both thought highly of each other but didn't have any romantic feelings. Gu Mengmeng hugged him for a long while before sighing. She told Wabi about Oakley and Bloom's situation. Wabi looked as if he had just been enlightened. "Ah, so you are behaving strangely today. You are hugging me instead of hitting me." Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Wabi with a slightly aggrieved expression. "Will you fall in love with someone one day and betray me for her? Is your brain filled with shit? Don't you know that talking about love will delay me from leveling up? I am not stupid." Wabi looked at Gu Mengmeng in disdain. He rolled his eyes. "But, since he betrayed you first, what are you so sad about? Gu Meng Meng looked up at Wabi. What if I am forced to destroy the Snake King Valley one day and then die after apologizing to you? What will you do? Wabi immediately roared. I dare you to King die. Gu Meng Meng shrugged. See, you don't even care about the Snake King Valley. You only care about my life. Wabi was taken aback for 2 seconds. Then, he snorted. I think I can understand how you feel. It is just like how snakes suddenly abandoned the entire Snake King Valley and disappeared. He let me know that not every farewell can be well prepared. The ones that will hurt will often catch you off guard. Gu Meng Meng looked askance at Wabi and did not speak for a long time. She just took out 2 cups of water and handed one to Wabi. She held the other in her hand and clinked it lightly before downing it in one gulp. Wabi didn't understand, but the atmosphere forced him to drink a cup of water like Gu Meng Meng. The rain lasted for 7 days before it stopped. Gu Meng Meng narrowed her eyes lazily and said, let's go to Zacharias to see Natalie and the children, then return to St. Nazaire before the rainy season ends. Elvis and Leah never had any objections to Gu Meng Meng's words. They just nodded and roughly packed their luggage. Colin finally broke through to the 4th level after 3 consecutive days and nights of hellish training. Gu Meng Meng was initially worried that Zacharias was too close to the stray beasts camp and it would be inconvenient for Sandy to head over. She wanted Colin to bring Sandy back to St. Nazaire first, but Sandy shook her head and said she wanted to stay behind. Chapter 1058. Gu Meng Meng didn't insist and just nodded. She hugged Sandy and instructed Colin to protect her well. Colin patted his chest loudly. Gu Meng Meng smiled in exasperation. He was already a 4th-level beast, but his intelligence could never keep up with his strength. His stubborn attitude seemed rather reliable. Leah pulled Jialiu along to instruct him on some matters to take note of in the tribe, while Elvis called Hedda to the side and said, protect yourself well, don't make my female cry. Hedda's expression changed. Everything had been settled. The next morning, Gu Meng Meng and the rest left Sauter and headed toward Zacharias. Wabi instigated Gu Meng Meng to visit Snake at the beast deity's place, but Gu Meng Meng rejected him. She knew that Snake had been living well. Even if she didn't visit him, he wouldn't be lonely. Now, she wanted to spend time with those who needed her, like Elvis, Leah and Wabi. Moreover, Gu Meng Meng still remembered Elvis's words. He said that every time she went to visit the beast deity, he would feel especially uneasy. He didn't even dare to blink, afraid that she would never return. This feeling of worry must be unbearable. Gu Meng Meng didn't want Elvis to suffer such grievances. The rainy season was the beast world's best weather. It wasn't as hot and humid as the rainy season, nor was it as dry or deadly as the dry season. The wind at this time was slightly chilly, while the sun shone with a faint warmth. Walking between the heavens and the earth, one could see the radiance everywhere, making one's mood extremely good. When they reached Zacharias, they saw Peter at the side of the dirt strip. Both of them were a little surprised, but Peter was clearly much calmer. Why are you here? Gu Meng Meng spoke first. Peter replied, this is the closest place to the stray beast camp. With me sitting here, they won't dare to act rashly. You left Natalie alone. Gu Meng Meng said as she followed Peter into the tribe. Peter snorted coldly. He looked at Elvis and then at Gu Meng Meng. What do you think? What a huge grievance, Gu Meng Meng laughed dryly. Why? Natalie has a new lover and neglected you. Pfft. Peter exploded. Gu Meng Meng smiled awkwardly. Fabricating gossip about her own mother-in-law and telling it to her father-in-law, there was probably no other daughter-in-law like her. Peter was afraid that Gu Meng Meng would say something that would infuriate him to death, so he simply said, the 6 little ones like to practice martial arts and hang on to him every day. Natalie just keeps running around those kids and doesn't have time for me. Elvis sighed, then patted Peter's shoulder. Acting like a brother in hardship, he said, I understand. Peter and Elvis looked at each other, sighing and shaking their heads. This father and son actually had an inexplicable tacit understanding on this matter. When he entered the tribe, Kanwo was fighting with someone. He was surrounded by a circle of people, but no one intervened. Qi Xian saw Gu Mengmeng and the rest from afar but did not say anything. He just smiled at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng sneaked over and hugged Qi Xian, who was covered in furry wolf cubs. She then asked in a low voice, what happened? Chapter 1059. Little Uncle was naturally referring to the little wolf cub hanging on Qishuan's body. Gu Mengmeng took a closer look and saw that the hind leg in Qishuan's arms was injured. Although it was not serious and it was just a scratch, but that was their damn little wolf cub. Without another word, Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and charged into the battlefield. She stepped on the second-level orc who was fighting with Kanwo. The orc who was being stepped on was stunned. When he looked up to see Gu Mengmeng, he was clearly stunned and could not say a word. Kanwo was also taken aback. Then, he immediately stood beside Gu Mengmeng timidly. Mother, Gu Mengmeng pointed at Kanwo's nose. Scram to one side. I will settle the score with you later. All right. Ever since Kanwo saw Gu Mengmeng teach Cole a lesson, he did not dare to talk back to her. Crestfallen, he ran to Qishuan's side and whispered, Second brother, why didn't you warn me? Qi Xian was also very innocent. I was thinking that if you could not defeat them, I would go up. Who knew that mother would suddenly charge forward? Great. Great messenger. The orc who was being stepped on by Gu Mengmeng finally reacted. He stammered, why did you hit me? Gu Mengmeng flexed her wrists. You hit my sons, so I will hit you. If you are not happy, call your mother over and let her hit me. With that, Gu Mengmeng pinched the male's thigh hard. He howled in pain. Gu Mengmeng looked at the purple bean on the ground. I heard that you took care of my children. This is a gift in return. As he spoke, he slapped the level 2 orc again, accurately knocking out one of his back teeth. Then, he said, next time I hear you gossip, I'll pull your tongue out. Do you hear me? The male covered his face and nodded. Then, he asked pitifully, what do you mean by gossip? Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes. She retracted her foot and turned to walk away. She hooked one arm around Kanwo's neck and used her index finger to flick Kanwo and Qishuan's heads. Didn't I tell the two of you that when fighting a tiger, blood brothers will fight together? The opponent is a level 2 beast, why don't the two of you attack together? What if I suffer losses? I'm being lectured. The two brothers lowered their heads and obediently admitted their mistakes. Mom, we know we were wrong. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and pulled Kanwo out from her arms, throwing him to the side. This kind of challenge is always one-on-one. It's against the rules for two brothers to fight against one. Gu Mengmeng exploded. What do you mean by not following the rules? I am in charge of Zacharias now. I am the rule. My rule is not to let my son suffer any losses. Elvis chuckled. Then why did you show mercy just now and not kill him directly? Gu Mengmeng smacked her lips and said, I'm not a homicidal maniac who would want someone's life just because of a little conflict between kids. Elvis rubbed Gu Mengmeng's head and kissed it, saying dotingly, tough mouth but soft heart. Burke knew that Gu Mengmeng had arrived and hurried out to welcome her. However, he stopped 10 steps away and looked at her radiant smiling face under the sunlight, as well as her happy partners, one in black and one in white, beside her. Even the snake beast, which was emitting a sinister aura, felt warm because of her presence. As for him, Chapter 1060. Mimicking solder, Burke also opened up a meeting room in Zacharias. There was no room made of stone, so he could only dig a spacious cave. He found a huge rock and dug out a stone chair with his claws. Then, he covered it with a tiger skin. How should she put it? It looked like an imitation of Solder's meeting room. Although it was not satisfactory, Gu Meng Meng was not picky. She turned around and sat on the chair. Looking at Burke, she asked, "The people here don't look easy to get along with. Can you handle it?" Burke nodded and smiled. "With Kanwu and Qishuan's help, it won't be a big problem." Gu Meng Meng nodded and didn't say anything else. She always felt a little awkward when facing Burke. It was the kind of feeling where you knew he liked you, but he was trying his best to hold it in. You didn't even have the chance to reject him, and could only act dumb and not understand. Sigh. It was tiring to put on an act, but it was also tiring to be forced to cooperate. Seeing that Gu Meng Meng didn't say anything, Burke was clearly a little uneasy. He pretended to cough to suppress his palpitations. Then, with a flickering gaze, he said, "The kid who fought with Kanwu today was Leonard's younger brother, Victor." Gu Meng Meng chuckled and interrupted Burke. "Why? Are you afraid that I will hold a grudge against you?" Burke hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I promised after entering the tribe that I would do my best to protect them, so," Gu Meng Meng waved her hands. "Don't worry, I have no intention of pursuing the matter. After all, he hit our little cub, and I have already hit him back. He scolded our child, and I knocked out one of his teeth. An eye for an eye, and we are even now." Borg nodded and said, "Then, are you going to see Natalie?" Gu Meng Meng nodded. Then, she stood up. "Just let these two rascals accompany me. You can go ahead with your work." Burke pursed his lips, then nodded in response. Kanwu led Gu Meng Meng and the rest towards Natalie's house, while Qi Xian stayed behind. Only after Gu Meng Meng and the rest were far away did he nudge Burke with his elbow. "Before my mother came, you have been longing for her every day. Now that she's here, why aren't you even looking at her?" Borg smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid of seeing her smile at me. I can't have her, but I can't forget her." Qi Xian smiled and shook his head. He patted Burke's shoulder and chased after Gu Meng Meng. Natalie's cave was located at the edge of the area. She claimed that it was more peaceful and undisturbed, but Gu Meng Meng knew that it was most likely because the old tribesmen of Zacharias were unhappy with Peter's status as a stray beast, so they were ostracized. Gu Meng Meng offered to fetch Natalie back to Saint Nazaire with her, but Natalie rejected. She said that she liked her current life. She could be with the person she loved, and could also help Elvis take care of Kanwu and Qi Xian. This made her feel very satisfied. As for what others thought, she didn't really care. Gu Meng Meng admired Natalie's open-mindedness. Anyway, if it were her, she would definitely not be able to stand being pointed at like this every day. After visiting Natalie, Gu Meng Meng didn't intend to stay for long. She wanted to head back to Saint Nazaire. Chapter 1061. Kanwu and Qi Xian came to send Gu Meng Meng off, but before they reached the separation zone, a tiger leaped out. If it was before she transmigrated, Gu Meng Meng would probably feel afraid, but now, you are. Gu Meng Meng looked at the tiger blocking her way and asked. The tiger shook its fur and transformed into a human. It was Victor, who had fought with Kanwu that day, the younger brother of Leonard's second-level beast. Gu Meng Meng raised her eyebrows and smiled mischievously. "Oh, you know I am leaving, so you are here to take revenge." "No." Victor raised his head like a bandit. With one hand on his waist and the other pointing at Gu Meng Meng, he said, "I want to mate with you." Pfft. Gu Meng Meng choked on her saliva. She laughed and said, "Child, did I beat you silly?" Victor's face was extremely red, but he still maintained his bandit demeanor. He pointed at Gu Meng Meng and said, I am already an adult, and a second-level beast. I am not a child. Gu Meng Meng face-bombed. Looking at Victor's face that looked as young as Canwa's, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. Little friend, are you even 3 years old? Victor snorted proudly and said, 3 years old. Ha, female, are you looking down on me? Let me tell you, I am already 5 years old. Pfft. Ha 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 ha. Burp. Gu Mingming's face turned red from his cuteness. She patted Elvis's shoulder and laughed so hard in his arms that she could not stand up straight. So, she was being teased. And he was being teased by a 5-year-old kid. You like me that much? You are actually so happy to hear that I want to mate with you, TSK, what a useless female. Victor said those words of disdain with an air of arrogance. But his little eyes kept glancing at Gu Meng Meng. Clearing his throat, he said, no wonder, your partners are all so old. It is normal for them to like a young, strong and charming male like me. There is no time like the present. Let's mate today, then I will leave with you. Elvis and Lee's faces had already turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Within a radius of 500 miles, one could clearly feel the low pressure. Yet, Victor did not know whether to say that a newborn calf was not afraid of a tiger or to be more direct, that he was a little slow and had no sense of danger at all. He even raised his little chin and said, your home or my home. As for mating, you probably won't be able to leave today. Let's change the date to tomorrow. Gu Meng Meng really did not want to laugh. She really wanted to treat this sudden confession seriously, but she could not control herself. Victor was completely immersed in his own imagination because of Gu Mingming's incessant laughter. He cleared his throat and said in a domineering manner, why aren't you coming over? You only know how to laugh. Humph, I'll make you cry later. Gu Meng Meng laughed until her stomach hurt. She turned around and hugged Elvis's neck, laughing like a mantis shrimp. Elvis stood at the same spot with a black face. Leah, on the other hand, smiled lightly and elegantly. His lips curved like a crescent moon that could stir up people's hearts. His eyes sparkled with a smile. He took a step forward and said, Victor, right? If you want to mate with a female, the first thing you have to do is to issue a challenge to her partner. Do you want to choose me, or him? Chapter 1062. The corners of Lee's lips were still hooked up and the smile on his face was even more radiant and gentle. Those who knew him well knew that this meant that he was even angrier. Turning his head, he placed his index finger on his lips and looked at Gu Meng Meng seductively. Meng Meng, can he mate with you without a challenge? Gu Meng Meng was still laughing and could not straighten her back. She could only try her best to wave her hands and say with a voice that was shaking from laughter. I'm not a pedophile, ha 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 ha, little brat or whatever, ha 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 burp, I'm not interested at all, ha 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 ha, female, your nickname is hypocritical. Victor pretended to be deep in thought. Don't say one thing but mean another. You obviously like me. Gu Meng Meng hugged Elvis's neck and shook it. Hurry up and leave, I'm going to die of laughter if you don't leave now, but Elvis stood at his original spot without moving an inch. His face darkened and he raised his eyebrows. Reject him, immediately. Gu Meng Meng knew that the word love rival was equivalent to Elvis and Lee's minefield. Whoever stepped on it would be blown up. Today, not only did this little brat step on it, he even did a breaking dance in the minefield. Looking at Elvis's dark face, Gu Meng Meng did not dare to laugh anymore. She knew that he was really angry and it was the kind of explosive rage. That's right, even when Gu Meng Meng hugged Natalie's newborn little bun, Elvis asked her if she wanted brothers to share the same wife. Victor, this 5-year-old little kid, was indeed old enough in Elvis's eyes, Gu Mingming's smile was dispersed by Elvis's dark face. Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis's neck and kissed his face. "Hubby, don't be angry." With that, Gu Mengmeng jumped down from Elvis's arms and walked straight to Victor. She leaned against Lee's chest and stood in a slanted position. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and raised her chin. "Hey, little brat. Liking me proves that you have good taste. But it's a pity that I don't like males who can be beaten down by me." Victor recalled how Gu Mengmeng had slapped off one of his teeth that day and blushed. He snorted and said, "But they can't beat you either." Gu Mingming's face turned red. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. "But I don't even know how to fight them." Victor wanted to say more, but after receiving Gu Mingming's meaningful glance, he forcefully swallowed his words. Clenching his fists, he said, "I got it. One day when I am strong enough, I will come and find you again. At that time, I will definitely be able to defeat you, and then you will no longer be able to reject my mating request." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. "Yeah, I'll wait and see." After saying that, Victor turned around and left. He walked faster and faster until he was almost running. The first confession in his life ended just like that. Victor was very upset. That day when Gu Mengmeng stepped on him, he laid on the ground and looked at her. The sun was right above her head and her entire body seemed to be glowing. At that moment, Victor knew that the love at first sight he had in this lifetime was used up just like that. He hesitated for a few days. Every day, he would pretend to pass by Natalie's door by accident. He just wanted to look at her from afar. He did not know what he wanted to see her doing. He only knew that her existence itself made him extremely happy. Knowing that she was leaving today, he mustered his courage to block her path and confess to her. It was not that she did not understand. Her smile had nothing to do with liking him. She was just laughing at him for overestimating himself. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Chapter 1063. How could he not feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis and Leah? He was just suppressing the urge to run and risking his life in exchange for a result. In the end, he understood Gu Mingming's gaze. She was saying, "Hurry up and leave, you will die if you don't." He might as well just die. Being saved by the female he liked in such a way, he might as well die in a mating battle. After Victor ran far away, he was stopped by someone. The people who stopped him were none other than Kanwo and Qi Xian. Qi Xian was just watching the show, leaning against a tree trunk without saying a word. He was here, because his mother said, "Fighting a tiger is a brother, you cannot let your younger brother suffer." "Victor, I treat you as my opponent, but you actually want to be my daddy." Without a second word, Kanwo directly punched Victor's face. Victor was a second-level orc. It was easy for him to dodge Kanwo's attack. Dodging with a sidestep, he suppressed the frustration in his heart and said with the air of a senior, "Don't mess around, you can't beat me." Victor's pretentious words made Kanwo even angrier. Without a second word, he transformed into his original form and charged forward. The wolf and tiger fought into a ball, while Qi Xian just held his forehead and watched. As long as his stupid brother did not suffer, he did not care about anything else. He was now thinking about more important things, such as, if someone passed by, how should he pretend not to know the two beasts who were fighting so miserably? After letting Victor go, Gu Mengmeng turned around and met Li's long and narrow eyes. His slender and bony fingers hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly, and with a cold smile in his eyes, he said, "You promised me that if there's a male you like, you will tell me in advance and allow me to eliminate him." Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. "Yeah, if there is really someone I like, I will definitely tell you in advance." Leah narrowed his eyes. "Gu Mengmeng, you lied to me." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and denied. No, how would I dare? But you were clearly letting him go on purpose just now. Leah inched closer and an oppressive aura enveloped Gu Mengmeng tightly. I saw the way you winked at him. Elvis walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Leah. He did not say a word and just frowned and pursed his lips. He looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly with a pained and speechless expression. He was the first partner, so he couldn't be like Leia and say whatever she wanted. But only the heavens knew that he was so jealous that he wanted to slap that arrogant brat into meat paste. He wanted to lock Gu Mengmeng fiercely in his arms and question her brazenly like Leah why she smiled at that fellow. He wanted to loudly order her not to give anyone else a chance. But after the words rolled around in his throat, what came out was, if you like tigers, you might as well consider Oritin. At least you're stronger than him, and you're not as annoying. Leah originally thought that Elvis would at least stand on his side at this moment. But the moment Elvis said that, Leah exploded instantly. How dare you? If you dare to consider Oritin, I will slaughter him and stew him with potatoes the moment I return to Saint Nazaire. Gu Mengmeng walked past Leah and her eyes were instantly filled with tears. She looked up at Elvis. Are you serious? You want me to accept Oritin? Chapter 1064. Elvis, you have no conscience. Gu Mengmeng said as she punched Elvis's chest. She did not use much strength and it was light as a feather. After a few punches, she pounced into Elvis's arms and sobbed, You can't wait to push me to someone else. Are you sick of me now? You don't like me anymore, right? Sobs. Elvis, you have a change of heart, haven't you? He was beaten and misunderstood, but he was not angry. She behaved like a child in his arms. She clearly knew that he could not do anything to her tears, but she still squeezed out a few drops of tears to fake her tears and force him to give in. The heaviness in his heart suddenly lessened. Not because of anything else, but because at this moment, she was in his arms. Heaving a sigh of relief, Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and said, My heart hasn't changed, can I dig it out for you to see? Gu Mengmeng blinked and shook her head, saying, I won't allow you to hurt my husband. Elvis smiled bitterly and tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose, saying, I can't hurt your husband's heart, the only one who can make his heart ache is you. Gu Mengmeng wiped her tears and softened her voice, saying, I won't do anything to make my husband's heart ache. When you look at other males, your heart hurts. When you smile at other males, it hurts too. You have to accept other males, just thinking about it makes you feel so much pain that you wish you were dead. Elvis said. Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently touched Elvis's chest. Her soft fingers had a gentle power that slowly seeped into Elvis's chest, as if it was really comforting the pain in his heart. Pouting, Gu Mengmeng said, I won't smile anymore, I won't smile in front of others anymore, don't hurt, no. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's brows and said, You still have to smile, because I will hurt if you smile, but if you don't smile, I will die. He did not forget how depressed Gu Mengmeng was when Snake just died, and how torturous his life was when she did not smile. But, you can only stay in my arms. This was his final bottom line. He could not back down. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed his lips back. Silly hubby, I have nowhere else to go other than in your arms. Elvis's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. Nowhere to go. How could this be? She was so beautiful, so dazzling, someone that the whole world desired. Everyone wanted to be her home. As for her, it wasn't that she didn't have a choice. She just said that she had to have him. The gloominess in Elvis's heart completely dissipated. He pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, All right. If you have somewhere else to go in the future, I might consider tearing this world apart so that you have nowhere to go except for my embrace. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed Elvis on the cheek. Yeah, your title as the leader of the Husky demolition team is not just for show. I believe in your professional abilities. He did not know what nonsense she was spouting, but just looking at her smile, he could not help but laugh along with her. Chapter 1065. Lee's heart skipped a beat. He was excited at first, but then stopped abruptly. He frowned and took a step back. His gaze was so deep that he could not even maintain his smile. He shook his head firmly and said, "No, don't mention this again in the future." Lee's reaction, Gu Mengmeng, was extremely confused. She was very sure of Lee's feelings towards her and was very confident. But, why? Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Didn't the males in the beast world yearn for offspring? Why was this fox and her family so resistant? Gu Mengmeng herself did not have the habit of giving birth, but she had always thought that since she gave birth to a litter of wolf pups for Elvis, she should at least give birth to a litter for Leah to be fair. But he actually rejected her so righteously. This suddenly made Gu Mengmeng feel a little uncomfortable. She could not describe it, but it felt weird. Leah turned his head and avoided Gu Mengmeng's gaze for the first time. He only said, "I don't like little cubs, they're too noisy and annoying." Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and shook her head. When Hedda and his brothers were young, Elvis always threw them to you to raise. You treasured them so much that you never showed any impatience. Don't think that I don't know how much envy you have in your eyes every time you see the 4 little ones. Previously, I always had things to do, so I did not mention this. Now that I am free and am willing to give birth to your children, why do you look so unhappy? Why, are you afraid that I will use this to blackmail you? Leah took a deep breath and said, "Anyway, I'm not giving birth." You. Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt speechless. There was no reason, only a stance. Not giving birth meant not giving birth. Gu Mengmeng suddenly laughed. She looked up at Leah in a provocative manner and said, "If you have the ability, then don't touch me." What she meant was that unless you become a monk for your entire life, I have the final say on whether you give birth or not. Leah made a prompt decision and replied in a righteous manner, "I don't have the ability." Gu Mengmeng was amused by Lee's strong and cowardly attitude. She did not know what to say to him. Leah did not give Gu Mengmeng time to think and continued, "Just like before, just place it outside or somewhere else. As long as it is not placed there, you will not get pregnant." When Leah said that, Gu Mengmeng suddenly realized something. After giving birth to Hedda and his brothers, other than the time she mated with Leah, Leah and Elvis did not seem to have planted their seeds in her body again. Glancing at Leah and then at Elvis, Gu Mengmeng frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. "Did you two discuss this beforehand?" Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis did not avoid it and just nodded his head. "Yes, we've discussed it. We already have 4 sons in our family, and all of them have lived to adulthood. This is enough. So what Leah and I mean is that we won't let you get pregnant again." "Why?" Gu Mengmeng was really speechless. "I like children, furry and cute." Chapter 1066. Gu Mengmeng decided not to walk anymore. She took 2 steps back and stood opposite Elvis and Leah. She squinted her eyes and sized them up. After a moment of silence, she opened her mouth and said, "I have Wang Xiaoxin's psychological knowledge now. If I want to, I can trick you two into revealing the truth step by step. But I don't want to do that. So you better tell me immediately, directly and clearly, what is the situation?" Leo was unwilling to say because he was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would feel burdened and guilty. Because she had 2 partners, she was always careful in relationships. She did not dare to say things that she could ask for in a righteous manner. Just like Victor's confession of love just now, no matter whether Gu Mengmeng intended to accept Victor or not, his and Elvis's actions were inappropriate in the beast world. She had the right to be angry and could even abandon him and Elvis because of this, but she anxiously coaxed them instead. This made them even more insatiable and even started to blur the boundaries of the dominant position in the family. But Leah did not forget that he was the one who forced Gu Mengmeng to such a lowly position. If he had accepted Gu Mengmeng with a clear conscience back then and did not create those troubles, then he and Gu Mengmeng would be living like deities now. Or when she and Elvis had clearly rejected him after mating, he should have let go of her easily. Even if he was secretly in pain, he should not pester her, disturb her, or force her. If that was the case, she would definitely be living in a righteous manner. But greed was human nature and it was engraved in their bones. When they could not get it, they wanted to get more. When they got more, they wanted to monopolize it. Now that monopolization was impossible, then, they were like wild beasts protecting their food, baring their teeth to warn and threaten their own kind that tried to approach them. If it was in other families, they would be despised and abandoned males. But facing their possessiveness, Gu Mengmeng tolerated it with a guilty heart. Leah sometimes felt very conflicted. He really did not want Gu Mengmeng to have other males, but he also hoped that Gu Mengmeng could be more righteous, even if she scolded him. So, when Gu Mengmeng asked him why he did not want to give birth to little foxes, he hesitated. Not willing. Every nerve and cell in his body was roaring. He wanted the child she bore for him. But, Leah frowned and lowered his head. The previous messenger of the beast deity was best at reading people's minds. Up till now, a lot of important information had been lost from the inheritance, but with just an incomplete copy, the Snow Fox clan could still control the entire beast world. In this generation, both Cole and Leah were the cream of the crop. It was just that one had become an ambitious person while the other had become a hermit. Coincidentally, both of them had their eyes on the same woman. Leah did not want Gu Mengmeng to see any flaws from his face, so all he could do was to lower his head and avoid talking. Elvis's thoughts were not as complicated as Lee's. He only knew that he had promised Gu Mengmeng not to hide anything from her and he had to keep his word. Chapter 1067. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and did not know whether to laugh or cry. The things that she could not understand no matter how hard she thought about it became clear in an instant. It was not that complicated at first, but she was the one who worried for nothing. So, you guys did not let me get pregnant because you felt sorry for me. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She laughed at herself for forgetting the pain after the scar healed. She was in so much pain when she gave birth to Heda and his brothers, but now, she only remembered that it was quite painful, but how painful was it? She could not remember it all. Perhaps when she was giving birth to the 4 brothers, she had really shouted that she did not want to give birth anymore, but now, she could not remember it anymore. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and opened her arms to hug him. Elvis pulled her into his arms and rubbed his face against her neck intimately, satisfied with the fullness of having her in his arms. Gu Mengmeng was such an existence to Elvis. She did not need to do anything, but her presence could fill his heart to the brim. Gu Mengmeng pulled Lee's hand and smiled gently. I have the powers of a beast king now. Even if you cut me open and dissect me, I might not die. Giving birth to a child is a piece of cake. Leah felt very helpless. He had struggled for a long time and did not want to say it, but Elvis had said it out loud so easily. So, he was the best candidate to be the first partner. As for himself, he might never be able to be as calm as he was in front of Gu Mengmeng. He was not afraid of Gu Mengmeng knowing anything. As for himself, no matter how hard he tried, some thoughts were stuck in his mouth. Pinching Gu Mengmeng's little hand, Leah chuckled. You won't die, but you will be in pain. Elvis and Leah had the same thoughts. They had both seen Gu Mengmeng giving birth with their own eyes. Even now, Elvis could still taste the blood in his mouth. It was as if a basin of rusty water had been poured into his windpipe. That feeling was unforgettable. Usually, when his Xiao Mang's hand was pricked by a wooden thorn, he would feel as if his heart was being smashed by a stick. And that night, Gu Mingming's blood flowed like a river and she was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. That scene had really shocked them. They knew that they did not have the courage to go through it again. If they saw Gu Mengmeng in so much pain again, they would probably go crazy. Gu Mingming's gaze reflected the sunlight and landed on Li's face. She smiled peacefully and said, "But, if I don't give birth to a nest of cubs for you, I will feel very regretful." She gave Elvis, Hede, and his brothers, and also gave Elvis the title and status of the first partner. But other than a mark on her ear, Leah had nothing else. Leah sighed. If the reason that Gu Mengmeng mentioned was about him, he could use a sentence that he had long prepared: "I don't need cubs to brush her off." But she said she would regret it. She also wants a nest of their cubs, right? It wasn't all because of guilt and inferiority, but because she loved him. That was why she wanted a nest of their cubs. Gu Mengmeng, I don't want to see you bleed anymore, and I don't want to see you in pain anymore. Leo looked deeply at Gu Mengmeng and said. Gu Mengmeng patted Li's shoulder and said, "It's all right, just don't guard the cave when I'm alive this time." Leo was speechless. Her solution was to keep him out of sight. Gu Mengmeng. Chapter 1068. Previously it was Elvis, this time it was her. She did not even change her lines. Even though he knew that she wanted to act, Leo was still willing to cooperate. If she wanted to hear it, he was willing to pour out his heartfelt words into her ears every day. "There is a scar on my heart, where the sky once fell. If you cut open my chest, you will realize that the scar is very special. There are only 5 words: I don't love you anymore." Gu Mingming's heart shrank as if it was being scratched by a cat. She knew better than anyone else who said, "I don't love you anymore." Pursing her lips and not saying a word, Gu Mingming's eyes met Li's long and narrow pupils. She was sucked in by his deep love and could not move an inch. Leo went forward and kissed the tip of her brows lightly, whispering softly, "A body of pure white fur established my holy and noble childhood. I was once a child blessed by the gods. I stood at the most dazzling place under the sun and was worshipped by people. I also once fell into hell because of hatred, killed hundreds of demons and demons, stepped on other people's bones to climb up, becoming the most evil existence in this world. However, from the moment I met you, I was empty." He placed Gu Mingming's little hand by his lips and kissed it gently, looking up at Gu Mengmeng, continuing, "That's right, I said I was empty. I emptied my body and emptied my heart. There is no good or evil, only you. In my name, I swear to the beast deity, from today onwards, only you are my God, my life, my everything." Leah repeated the oath he made back then, still full of deep love. His long and narrow eyes were full of infatuation, gently but firmly entwined around Gu Mengmeng, not leaving a single gap. "If you are kind, I will redeem myself and become a Buddha. If you are evil, I will sacrifice myself and become a demon." Li's fingers hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly, kissing her thin lips. The kiss was lingering but not deep, giving off a sense of beauty as if they were filming an idol drama. After a long while, Leah finally pulled away, looking at Gu Mengmeng with misty eyes, saying, "I will be wherever you are, regardless of good or evil, regardless of life or death." "But you say, I don't love you like this." They were an old couple, right? But Gu Mengmeng still blushed and her heart raced from Li's occasional teasing. That's true. This sentence, "Don't you love me anymore?" In the modern era, this was a golden phrase that could do anything. As long as this line was used, boys could only submit. Whether it was right or wrong, in front of this sentence, if you didn't want to make a mess, you could only admit defeat. Because once it rose to the value of, "You don't love me, hee, it would be quite difficult to coax." Or, "You actually want to change girlfriends, so it doesn't matter." However, this did not work in the beast world. It's not that it won't work. The reverse will work as well. If a male asks a female, "Do you not love me anymore?" It was much more reasonable in the beast world. Gu Meng Meng face-bombed. She had to end her pretense even if she had to die. So he cleared his throat and forced himself to say awkwardly, "You used to love me very much. You agreed to everything I said. Now, I'm just saying that I want to give birth to a nest of little foxes, but you're not willing. Clearly, you don't love me anymore, so you think I'm troublesome." Leah chuckled and said, "Do you really want a nest of little foxes?" Gu Meng Meng nodded her head heavily, showing her determination. Chapter 1069. Snatch a nest. Gu Mingming's mind couldn't keep up with Li's pace and she didn't understand what he meant. Leah nodded. "Although it may be a little troublesome, it shouldn't be difficult to set up a trap. As long as you kill a female that has just given birth, you can get a nest of fox cubs. The last time I heard from Oakley, he said that there were 3 litters of newborns. Among them, Philly's 3 cubs are the best and Lacey's have the most with 5 cubs. Which nest do you want?" Gu Meng Meng stared at Leah for a long time and confirmed that Leah was serious, her face flushed with shock. "It's not like I can't give birth myself. Why would I snatch someone else's?" Leah replied, "I can't bear for you to suffer." Gu Meng Meng hurriedly waved her hands. "But you can't kill a mother and snatch someone else's child." Leah shrugged. "Why not?" "Why? Yes, in this beast world, forceful snatching was the right thing to do. So Cole snatched her Qixuan away and she could only snatch it back. Power was justice. If she couldn't win, she couldn't reason with him." Gu Meng Meng still shook her head. "Leah, you know that the education I received since young is different from you. I have deeply ingrained values and there are many things I can't do." Leah didn't force her and took a step back. "Then don't snatch them away. Let them raise them themselves. When you want to play, I will bring them over for you to play with. You can just return them when you are done playing with them." Gu Meng Meng replied, "Don't you feel envious looking at other people's little foxes?" Li's long and narrow eyes brightened. Layers of smiles and gentleness rippled out, slowly pouring into Gu Mingming's bright eyes. "When you are by my side, I have never envious of anyone." Gu Mingming's heart fluttered under Li's affectionate gaze. She blushed slightly and lowered her head in silence. Cole, who had been waiting at the stray beast camp for a long time but Gu Meng Meng and the rest still hadn't appeared. He came over and heard Li's confession. He snorted in disdain. "If you care about everything with your mouth, what about a mute?" With a pop, the romantic dividend bubble was burst by Wabi. Gu Meng Meng sighed and shook her head in exasperation. "You're an old bachelor, what do you know? I am only over 800 years old this year. You are the 10,000-year-old bachelor." Wabi and Gu Meng Meng would feel uncomfortable if they did not exchange a few words. Gu Meng Meng wrapped one arm around Elvis's neck and the other around Leah. She said, "I have a partner, I can't afford to be a bachelor." Wabi gritted his teeth. "Great," Gu Meng Meng found another point to mock him. "Damn it, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so talkative. What a waste of time." Wabi pretended not to hear Gu Meng Meng's provocation. He swung his tail impatiently. Are you leaving or not?" "What? Are you going to spend the night here?" "Look, the isolation belt is less than 10 steps behind you. Even a snail can walk faster than you. Before Gu Meng Meng could say anything, Elvis spoke up. I met with some trouble just now, so I was delayed for a while. Wabi immediately became alert. He looked around. Did Cole find trouble with you just now? Chapter 1070. Then. Wabi wanted to ask more, but was interrupted by Gu Meng Meng. Let's hurry, I want to return to Saint Nazaire as soon as possible. Gu Meng Meng thought to herself, after such a big fuss, Victor's matter had finally been settled. She better not let that idiot Wabi bring it up again. How could Elvis and Leah not understand her? But that Victor wasn't worth pursuing too much. It was enough for them to make their stance clear. It was not worth it to harp on and make things difficult for Gu Meng Meng. Moreover, if that stupid tiger hadn't used his age to agitate Elvis and Leah, they wouldn't have cared about him at all. After a day's journey, they found a cave to rest in at night. Elvis and the rest had dug this cave the last time they returned to Saint Nazaire from the stray beast camp. At that time, they had thought that Natalie and Peter were here, and given Gu Meng Meng's character, they would definitely come here often. So they had dug this cave in advance, so that Gu Meng Meng could rest on her way back and forth. The cave was well hidden, and with Gu Meng Meng's Beast King scent lingering around, ordinary beasts wouldn't dare to approach, not to mention wild beasts. After dinner, it started to drizzle. Such weather was more comfortable for Wabi outdoors than indoors, so he swam out. Gu Meng Meng didn't bother about him. Leah started a fire in the cave to keep the inside of the cave dry so that Gu Meng Meng could have a comfortable sleep. Ever since Gu Meng Meng had a nosebleed in solder, Leah hadn't started a fire in the cave for a long time. When she slept, Elvis and Leah would hug each other to keep Gu Meng Meng warm. There was a fire in the cave, and the warmth made Gu Meng Meng sleepy. She closed her eyes in Elvis's arms and fell into a deep sleep. Looking at her defenseless sleeping face, Elvis narrowed his eyes. That slightly opened mouth was like an invitation, making Elvis a little dazed. Before his brain could make a decision, his lips were already pressed against that wet spot. In her half-dream, she sensed a familiar scent. Gu Meng Meng didn't resist, but instinctively wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck. This action was undoubtedly a form of encouragement, making Elvis, who only wanted to steal a kiss, even more irresistible. Flipping over, he pressed one hand against the side of her ear and the other around the back of her head, using his forearm as a pillow for her. He half-knelt in between her legs to support his body's strength, sticking close to her but not crushing her. This kiss gradually developed from light and sweet to lingering. As she was too familiar with Elvis, Gu Meng Meng instinctively responded to this kiss but did not open her eyes, as if it was an unconscious action in her sleep. When her tongue responded to his teasing, he seemed to have received some kind of permission and became even more unbridled. Gu Meng Meng, whose pajamas were already heavy from the warmth of the campfire, felt even more dizzy from Elvis's kiss. Her brain could not react but her body gave the most direct response. The fox's seductive fragrance filled the entire room. The fragrance was strong and alluring. Xiao Meng, you're giving your permission, right? Elvis's deep and hoarse voice rang beside Gu Meng Meng's ear, teasing the string in her heart. Gu Meng Meng moaned, because of the ticklish feeling. She twisted her body twice, as if expressing her dissatisfaction at Elvis restricting her movements. Chapter 1071. Elvis had not started eating for a long time and so was Leah. But, I will go out and guard for you. Leah stood up with much difficulty, fighting with his rationality and desire. Elvis also knew the reason why Leah gave up on joining when he was in the throes of passion. He was afraid that Gu Meng Meng would pester him to mention the little fox again, so he avoided her alone. After all, if Gu Meng Meng really wanted to pester him, how could he and Leah resist her? But You can't hide from her forever. Leah paused his steps with much difficulty. He did not turn back, afraid that he would pounce on her, so he said, "Bear with it first, we will talk about it after she forgets about it." Elvis looked at Lee's back view and remained silent for a moment, before saying, "Next time, I will help you guard." Yeah. Leah still walked out in the end, even though every step was difficult and he was in a pathetic state. But it was better than enduring the fire burning his body, it was better than watching her suffer so much just to give birth to a nest of spoiled cubs. Sitting at the entrance of the cave, Leah looked up at the sky and smiled bitterly. "I told you before, it's enough for us to have one fox in our family, but you just won't listen. So naughty." In the cave, the atmosphere became even more intense after Leah left. Elvis caressed Gu Mingming's hair lightly and called out gently, "Xiao Meng, open your eyes and look at me, yeah?" Yeah. Gu Mengmeng was already awake, but her eyelids were so dry that she was unwilling to open them. Women were just so strange. She would not have any thoughts before experiencing it, but after experiencing it, her body would start to have needs. Moreover, the more wonderful the experience, the better her body would be developed, and the more sensitive and eager she would be towards certain things. Elvis's comfort had long ignited Gu Mingming's body. It would be a miracle if she could still sleep peacefully. Wrapping her hands around Elvis's neck, Gu Mengmeng turned around and laid on his chest. She rubbed against his neck in a coquettish manner, her little hands caressing his collarbone and the tip of her tongue lightly licking his Adam's apple. Elvis's throat tightened and he instinctively swallowed his saliva, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. This small response made Gu Mengmeng feel like a child who had stolen a fruit and was especially interested in this moving candy. Her half-asleep body was even softer than usual. She laid on Elvis's body as though she had no bones and rested her head on his shoulder. Her entire body was emitting a seductive fragrance and her body temperature was slightly hot, making Elvis's internal organs feel comfortable. The little person who was causing trouble did not open her eyes. Her small mouth wandered between his neck and chin as if she was tasting a delicacy. She nibbled and kissed, making his chin full of saliva. However, he was reluctant to pull the little person away from his body. The itch in his heart was unbearable, but he damn enjoyed the torment. Gu Mengmeng was born to torture him. "Hubby," Gu Mengmeng called out softly. Elvis's bones completely melted when he heard her. He breathed heavily beside Gu Mingming's ear and gently bit her earlobe, asking softly, What do you want me to do?" Gu Mengmeng bit Elvis's chin and did not use much strength. Then, she said in a muffled voice, "Kiss, hug and raise me up high." Elvis chuckled and the word "good" was drowned between their lips and teeth. The ground was full of flowers, the ambiguous flowers blossomed. Out of topic. "Hurry, there's no time, hurry up and board the train. Look at the car plate, 4927797273." After boarding the train, look for the administrator to check the tickets. Babes with more than 800 fans can enter the VIP cabin and enjoy the special treatment of overflowing meat fragrance. Note: this train is not heading to the kindergarten. Please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. This train is not heading to the kindergarten. Please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. Chapter 1072. She had been tortured by Elvis too much. If she had given up and fainted as usual, she would have recovered after a day's rest. But because she had promised him, Gu Mengmeng forced herself to stay conscious and fight for half a night. She had truly experienced the difference in their abilities at every juncture. In a daze, she heard Elvis ask her if she wanted to set off. She said something in a daze, and then she felt her body start to move unsteadily. Yeah, it should be Elvis carrying her toward Saint Nazaire. Gu Mengmeng slept more peacefully this way. She slept for more than 2 days straight. When she woke up, she was in Frankston. Gu Meng Meng could recognize this place mainly because Hanston and Joshua were standing right in front of her. Yeah, third-level rhinoceros and first-level apes. The tribe had taken in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. They had once requested to mate with her in Sauter, but were threatened and mocked by Elvis and Leah. After that, they had never seen each other again. Gu Meng Meng remembered Leah telling her that Frankston and Saint Nazaire shared a border. They had never met before because they did not dare to appear in front of Elvis. This time, they were quite daring. Were they not afraid that Elvis and Leah would be unhappy and really destroy Frankston? Leah was preparing lunch for Gu Meng Meng. After Victor's lesson, Gu Meng Meng did not dare to show any attention to other males. She did not even dare to look around and just stared at Elvis's Adam's apple. She did not spare a single glance at Hanston and Joshua who were standing in front of her. Damn it, Elvis's jealousy was not something to joke about. She had already slept for 2 days and still felt pain all over as if she had been hit by a truck. And this was with the protection of the Beast King's abilities. If not, Gu Meng Meng really felt that she had been too rash in mating. She should have tried marriage in advance. Otherwise, it would be too late for regrets when she died in bed one day. Elvis was very satisfied with Gu Meng Meng's reaction. How good would it be if she could stay in his arms obediently like a kitten and not give anyone a chance? After knowing that the great messenger was passing by Frankston, the two of us specially came to escort you to ensure that you are safe in Frankston. Hanston said respectfully. No need. Gu Meng Meng waved her hands and said, Elvis and Leah are enough to take care of me, I don't need anyone else. Wabi rolled his eyes, which meant, do you think I'm not human? Gu Meng Meng glared at Wabi from the side of Elvis's neck, meaning to say, why are you pretending to be a human when you're just a pile of shit? Wabi didn't want to embarrass Gu Meng Meng in front of outsiders, so he tolerated it and didn't make a sound. He just slowly closed his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. Hanston understood the meaning behind her words and thought that she was still upset about the time he had proposed to her in Sauter, so he said, Great Messenger, don't misunderstand. Hanston knows that I am not worthy of you and I have already put away those thoughts that I shouldn't have. This time, he was really here to escort the Lord Emissary. After all, this is Frankston's territory. If the Great Messenger encounters anything unpleasant here, we won't be able to bear the consequences. Chapter 1073. Joshua could not withstand the silent stare of a fifth-level orc like Elvis. His heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out of his chest. But from the corner of his eyes, he saw Gu Meng Meng, who was nestled in Elvis's arms and had not looked at him at all. He did not have the right to challenge, but he could not give up. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Elvis in the eye, but said with a trembling voice, I like the mighty messenger, this will not change. But I also know that I do not have the right to pursue her, so I will not do anything unnecessary to make myself look pathetic in front of the mighty messenger. Ha! Elvis chuckled and waved his hands, saying, What makes you think that I will allow an idiot who covets my female to stand out in front of Xiaomeng? I will give you 2 choices, scram now, or... Before Elvis could finish his sentence, he shook his body and instantly released his 5th-level beast pressure, then immediately retracted it. It was as if Joshua was inflated into a human-shaped balloon at the opening of a shopping mall in a second, then immediately deflated back to his original size. His knees gave way and he knelt on the ground, reverting to his original form, but he did not even have the strength to escape. Hugging his head with both hands, Joshua buried his face tightly in his knees, trembling all over. Hanston was here to express goodwill and not to cause trouble. Seeing how Elvis was acting, if they did not leave now, he might just kill the 2 of them right here, so he did not dare to delay any further. He only helped Joshua up and said, Since that's the case, we'll head back first. After all, We are neighbors and we still have to rely on St. Nazir's water source to survive the dry season." Elvis did not say a word, just looking at Hanston and Joshua with disdain like a king, expressionless and dignified. After Hanston left, Leah swayed his tail and placed one arm on Elvis's shoulder, while the other reached into his arms to poke Gu Meng Meng, who was curled up like an ostrich. He laughed. He did not want to show his embarrassment in front of Gu Meng Meng. Did he think that we would allow him to maintain a good image in front of Gu Meng Meng? Seeing that everyone had left, Gu Meng Meng heaved a sigh of relief. She leaned on Elvis's shoulder and said, "He was just a first-level orc. Weren't you a little too ruthless?" "I was scared out of my wits." Elvis chuckled. "If it was in the past, I would have just bitten him to death. I was afraid you wouldn't like it, so I held back." Gu Meng Meng did not say anything else. After all, she had heard about what kind of person Elvis was in the past. He had already changed a lot because of her habits and personality. He had always been accommodating her, hadn't he? Leah prepared lunch and Gu Meng Meng ate it casually before continuing their journey. It only took half a day to travel from Frankston to St. Nazir. That night, Gu Meng Meng returned to St. Nazir. And before she entered the territory, a row of familiar people were already standing there waiting for Gu Meng Meng. Barit and Oriton, the two great guards, stood right in the middle. It was rare that Ian did not climb up the tree and just stood there looking at Gu Meng Meng with a faint smile. Fei Rui, who was half a head shorter, stood beside him. His pair of clear eyes reflected the stars in the sky, so bright that one could not shift their gaze away from him. Chapter 1074. Oriton was much more at ease, or perhaps it should be said that his naturally paralyzed face was too perfect. Even if he had any emotions, he would hide 95% of them, so no one could tell whether he was happy or sad. He just cleared his throat and asked, "Have you guys eaten dinner?" Gu Meng Meng shook her head and said, "I knew you were waiting, so I came back to eat with you." Oriton was obviously taken aback, then he frowned slightly and said, "I have already prepared the prey for you. Today I am not eating. I will only help you cut the meat, start the fire and wash the cutlery." Oriton was not eating. Not only was he not eating, he was also watching from the side. Was he torturing himself? Seeing that Gu Meng Meng was not saying anything, Oriton clenched his fists and said, "I am not eating tomorrow either." Gu Meng Meng was so stunned, a foodie actually changed his nature. Seeing that Gu Meng Meng was still not saying anything, Oriton frowned and clenched his fists tightly, as if he was enduring an extreme pain and shouted, "I am not eating the day after tomorrow either. 3 days is the limit, I cannot tolerate any longer. If you are still not appeased, just let your partner fight with me." Gu Meng Meng, she had clearly said from the start that she deliberately did not eat dinner today, so that she could eat with him. Did she look like she was very angry? How cruel was it to deprive a foodie of the right to eat? Why would such a kind and gentle person like Gu Meng Meng do such a heavy thing? Wasn't that right? Gu Meng Meng covered her mouth and chuckled, saying, "Are you apologizing to me for leaving Sauter without saying goodbye?" Oriton didn't say anything. He looked away guiltily, then nodded his head slightly. Gu Meng Meng tilted her head to look at Barit and said, "What about you? How do you intend to express your gratitude?" Barit's lips pressed into a straight line, he lowered his head and said, "I betrayed you, I should go to the platform of the deity's punishment." Gu Meng Meng did not express her opinion, she just said to Elvis, "I am hungry, let's go home first, we will talk after eating." Elvis did not care about the four of them at all, he just walked past them and returned to the entrance of the cave, putting Gu Meng Meng down. This was their habit, every time they returned home, they would definitely put Gu Meng Meng down at the entrance, then Gu Meng Meng would hold their hands and return to the cave. It had been a long time since anyone had lived in the cave, so there was a thick layer of dust. Elvis took out a beast skin and laid a thick layer on the ground. He then placed Gu Meng Meng on the cushion and kissed her forehead before returning to the cave to tidy up. Leah started a fire in front of Gu Meng Meng and set up a stone pot. Without standing on ceremony, he took the meat Oriton had prepared, changed the knife, added some seasonings and started cooking. From the moment the fire was lit, Oriton's eyes never left the wok. Barit walked to Gu Meng Meng's side and sat beside her. He did not dare to look at her and just sat there quietly. After a long silence, he finally opened his mouth and said, "This time, I won't be able to survive." Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and looked at Barit, asking, "This is your way of compensating me?" Barit nodded and said, "Other than this life, I have nothing else. So, I can only offer this life to the beast deity to wash away my sins." Gu Meng Meng chuckled and said, "You did something wrong to me, shouldn't you be apologizing to me? Why did you give it to my father?" Barit looked at her, he did not understand what Gu Meng Meng meant. Gu Meng Meng asked, "You don't want this life anymore, right?" Chapter 1075. Gu Meng Meng smiled and took a deep breath, saying, "Since you don't want it, give it to me. From today onwards, your life belongs to me and you have to listen to me for the rest of your life. You have to give up your own sense of right and wrong and only obey me. This is called compensation. If you die so easily, I won't get anything. How is that considered as an apology?" Barit was stunned by Gu Meng Meng's reasoning. He was someone who had betrayed her. She was still willing to trust him again. She was still willing to give him another chance to stay by her side. He had thought that she would never forgive him. He had thought that she would never want to see him again. So he said he would go up the platform of the deity's punishment and never come down again. That way, she would be happier and appease some of her anger. But she said, he belonged to her now. "Why, you're not willing?" Gu Meng Meng raised her brows and said, "All right, I won't force you if you're not willing, then help me do 10 things instead, I'm willing." Barit blurted out. Gu Meng Meng chuckled and nodded in agreement, saying, all right. Then it's settled, but I haven't thought of the 10 things yet, you can owe me first." Barit shook his head and blushed. He looked at Gu Meng Meng with his bright eyes and said, "Not this. I mean, I'm willing to give my life to you and listen to you for the rest of my life. I don't have my own sense of right and wrong and only obey you. I'm willing." Ha! Actually, Gu Meng Meng had purposely said that to scare him. After all, they were friends. He knew that Oakley was plotting against her, but he did not even warn her before leaving without bidding farewell. Gu Meng Meng was quite resentful towards him for this. After all, if he had revealed a few words to let Gu Meng Meng know about Oakley earlier, maybe things could have changed. Oakley and Bloom wouldn't have to die. But Barit agreed just like that and Gu Meng Meng was caught unprepared. Laughing dryly, Gu Meng Meng patted Barit's shoulder and said, "Actually, you just didn't report what you knew. It's not a crime worthy of death and you don't need to throw away your entire life." Barit's expression stiffened. He retracted his gaze and lowered his head to look at his own shadow. He slowly asked, "You actually don't want to see me anymore, right? It's okay, don't force yourself. I don't deserve to be forgiven." Gu Meng Meng had transmigrated here for a year, but she was still not used to the relationships between men and women here. One was absolutely supreme, while the other was even lower than a speck of dust. As long as he made a female unhappy, he would deserve to die. Gu Meng Meng looked at Barit's expression. If she did not take his life and ravage it ruthlessly, he would admit that Gu Meng Meng had not forgiven him. Shaking her head helplessly, Gu Meng Meng said, "All right, I'll take care of your life first. When you meet a female you like Colin and want to mate with her, I'll return it to you." In other words, if he thought it through, he could be free at any time. After all, Gu Meng Meng said, when you want to mate with someone, and not after you mate. In other words, as long as Barit said, I have someone I like, I want to mate, Gu Meng Meng would return him his freedom. Chapter 1076. From the first time he saw Gu Meng Meng, Barit had already set his eyes on this female. At that time, Elvis had wrapped her in a huge piece of beast skin and he did not even see her face. He only felt that the smell on her body was especially nice and different from all the other females. The first time they met, she raised her hand and slapped a male. This kind of action was very common in the beast world. Males would not even feel anything wrong when they were slapped and would only care if the female's hand hurt. But even so, he was still attracted to her. Because the reason she slapped someone was not because the male did something bad, but because the male liked her after smelling the scent on her body. Usually, females would feel that their vanity was satisfied and they would scold them symbolically. But he had never seen anyone really get angry like she did. Maybe, it was that slap that shattered the defense in his heart so he could not help but be curious about what she was doing. What was she thinking? What would she do next? Then, her reaction surprised him time and time again and he could not take his eyes off her. In this life, the craziest thing he had done was probably helping her escape. The most glorious thing was going up the platform of the deity's punishment for her. But ever since he knew that she was the messenger of the beast deity, Barit clearly knew that it was impossible for him to be with her in this lifetime. He was not worthy of her, wasn't he? After that, she mated with Elvis and even someone like Leah had to put in a lot of effort before he finally got the upper hand. He could see everything about her clearly and he knew better than anyone else that her heart was already fully occupied by Elvis and Leah. No one could come between them anymore. Those two would not give any other males any leeway. If he wanted to stay by Gu Mingming's side, the only way was to bury his love deep in his heart and let it fester and fester. He did not know when it started but the 3 words Gu Meng Meng had become Barit's everything. How could he still talk about mating with other females now? The only one he wanted to mate with would never accept him, right? It was already good enough that he could protect her. Giving this life to her was also considered as belonging to her, right? This belonging was already a gift. He didn't dare to hope for more. Gu Meng Meng did not know how many things Barit was thinking about. She just tilted her head and said, "There's something that I have always wanted to ask." Barit collected his thoughts and looked at Gu Meng Meng, waiting for her to continue. Gu Meng Meng asked, "How did Oakley convince you and Oriton back then? You don't seem like someone who would abandon me so easily." His heart was touched. He had clearly betrayed her, but she was still willing to believe that he would not abandon her so easily. Taking a deep breath, Barit said, "Oakley told me everything, I sympathized with him and Bloom, so I agreed to his plan." What Barit didn't say was that Oakley's persistence and disregard for his own safety had moved him. His own love would never come to fruition, but if there was another pair of lovers in the world, he would be happy to see it. Moreover, he was very clear that no matter what Oakley was planning, no one in this world could hurt Gu Meng Meng. This was the main reason why he dared to agree to Oakley's plan. Chapter 1077. After Leah finished cooking, Oriton was in a bewitched state. His eyes were fixed on the pot and his face was flushed red. Gu Meng Meng felt that even if she suggested chopping off one of Oriton's hands in exchange for him eating, he would not even blink and would only ask if it was his left or right hand. Gu Meng Meng was very naughty as she deliberately used an exaggerated eating method to taste Lee's cooking. She used the words commonly used in food shows to exaggerate her praises while purposely waving the bowl in front of Oriton. She pretended to be innocent and said, "It smells so good, Oriton, take a sniff." Oriton wanted to hit someone. Gu Meng Meng put down her bowl and chopsticks, holding her chin as she looked at Oriton and said, "Answer a few of my questions." If I am satisfied, I will let you eat. Oriton's expression did not change from beginning to end. He still had a poker face, but his eyes obviously lit up. Gu Mengmeng asked, "Why did you listen to Oakley's arrangements and leave without even informing me?" Oriton replied, "Oakley told me and Barit about his arrangements." Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "So you also sympathized with him and Bloom, so you listened to his arrangements?" "No." Oriton shook his head and said, "I don't understand and have no interest in love. I will also not sacrifice half a year's worth of delicacies for that kind of thing." Gu Mengmeng laughed. Hearing his words, he sounded so wronged. In order to eat as soon as possible, Oriton started explaining in detail without holding back. "According to Oakley's plan, you will definitely not be back for a while. But if Ian is the only one in St. Nazaire, it will be hard to control the situation. First is the food storage for the winter. Last year, there was already news that St. Nazaire had a way to store food to prevent it from going bad. This year, the tribesmen of St. Nazaire started hunting in large numbers during the rainy season, which almost confirmed this rumor. If you are in St. Nazaire, there is naturally no need to say anything. But if you are not here..." Oriton paused for a moment before turning around to look at Elvis and Leah, before looking at Gu Mengmeng. He continued, "If the other tribes have a way to store food but St. Nazaire doesn't, what do you think your two partners will do to ensure that you don't have to starve during the winter?" "What to do? Was there a need to say? Snatch it?" Gu Mengmeng had no doubt that if they were in each other's shoes, Elvis would bring back all the food from the other party's tribe to ensure that she would have enough food during winter. The other males in the beast world might not be as powerful as him, but for their own females, they would definitely have the guts to do so. In this way, St. Nazaire would become the target of public criticism. "Ha, an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth." Gu Mengmeng nodded, indicating that she understood. Actually, Oriton did not really understand what Gu Mengmeng was talking about, so he did not answer Gu Mengmeng. He just continued to be honest. "You're not around, Elvis and Leah are also not around, so St. Nazaire is in a protective vacuum state. This is equivalent to a pot of fragrant meat stewed, but there is no one guarding the side of the pot, so the wild beasts attracted by the fragrance of the food will naturally not be polite." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Oriton's analogy really showed the true colors of a foodie. He couldn't help but tease, "So you came back to protect your food?" Chapter 1078. Gu Mengmeng nodded in agreement and thought to herself, snatching food from the tiger's mouth is courting death. Oriton continued, "Even if Barit and I came back to guard, this rainy season is still very tough. People come in waves, the land beasts patrol in the day and the Eagle Owl tribe guards the entire night. Once there's any disturbance, all the tribesmen will join the battle immediately. Even so, almost half of the food has been snatched away. Luckily, with last year's experience, we are especially well prepared this year. So even if a lot of food has been snatched away, it's still enough for everyone to survive through the winter." Gu Mengmeng nodded and felt a little more at ease. Actually, the reason why she dared to abandon the entire St. Nazaire and head to Sadr was mainly because the families of the 16 valued females she brought back from the beauty pageant all had powerful males. Each family had at least 1 or 2 4th-level beasts and at least 4 or 5 3rd-level beasts. This kind of strength was enough to look down on the entire beast world. In terms of the tribe's overall strength, no tribe was a match for them. But Gu Mengmeng had neglected one thing: these 16 valued females came from 16 different tribes. They were originally the most beautiful females in their tribes, and the males and their families were all extremely powerful in their original tribes. This led to a very serious problem. No one was willing to submit to anyone, and they would only care about their own family's matters when faced with a problem. So Oakley arranged for Barit and Oriton to come back because they were the messenger's guards and had a certain status in the beast world. In addition, those females had a kind of blind admiration for Gu Mengmei and even looked up to her guards. So the two of them had to come back. Not just to increase their fighting strength, but more importantly, to have someone who could make the decision when faced with a problem. They would not let Saint Nazaire become a pile of loose sand and be defeated by others one by one. Oratin continued, the rainy season after the winter is better. There's plenty of water and food, but the following dry season is the second problem. Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat and she frowned. Water source. Oakley had spread the news about the water source. Sauter was indeed the #1 battlefield, but those who did not dare to face Gu Mengmei and the rest would naturally set their sights on Saint Nazaire, where the great demon king was not at home. After all, there was also a well here. Water in the dry season was equivalent to food in the winter, and the temptation was fatal. Oratin stared at the meat in Gu Mingming's bowl and swallowed his saliva. Then, he continued, luckily, Fei Rue has been guarding the well all this while. Once someone nears the well, he will let out a high-pitched warning sound and the tribesmen will rush over in time. These rounds of battles are really exhausting. Letting out a sigh, Oratin continued, if you had not returned, we would have been thrown into a new round of battle. Yes, the rainy season had arrived, and it was time to prepare food for the winter. If Gu Mengmeng was not around, the fight for food would definitely happen again. Gu Mengmeng sighed, feeling that she would not be able to spend this rainy season comfortably. Chapter 1079. It was not an exaggeration to say that Oratin's eyes were almost shooting out lasers, the kind of intensity that could shoot down a plane in the night sky. All the blood vessels in his body were about to explode, but he still looked at Gu Mengmeng with a poker face and asked, are you really giving it to me? Gu Mengmeng felt like laughing at Oratin's expression. It was clearly written on his face that I will bite you to death if you don't give it to me, but his mouth still asked such an additional question. TSK, he was just being honest. She directly stuffed the bowl into Oratin's hands and said, here, eat it. Oratin did not even bother to say a word of thanks as he directly lifted the bowl and poured the contents into his mouth. Yes, using chopsticks was too slow. He had already suffered for more than half a year and every cell in his body was screaming for Li's food. He was really hungry and thirsty. Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry as she watched him eating. Those who did not know better would have thought that he was a starving ghost that crawled out from hell. Slow down, don't chew your own tongue too. Gu Mengmeng teased. Sorry, your good friend Oratin has already gone offline. Gu Mengmeng scooped another bowl and passed it to Barit, saying, you eat too, you've worked hard for so long. Barit was not as stubborn as Oratin about food. Although Li's food was indeed delicious, Barit felt that such exquisite food should be eaten by females. Males did not need to be so particular about food, but this bowl was given to him by Gu Mengmeng personally. Not to mention delicious food, even if it was a bowl of poison, he would not waste a single drop. Ian sat on the tree in a sickly state and lowered his head to look at Gu Mengmeng, saying, hey, I leveled up. Gu Mengmeng looked up and squinted at Ian carefully. He still looked like a sickly prince, but if she looked closely, there was an extra feather above his ears. Now, there were 3 feathers growing vertically above each of his ears. Gu Mengmeng raised her head and narrowed her eyes. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, hey, congratulations. Ian snorted coldly and said, do you think I wanted to level up? It was all because you were not around for half a year and I was forced to work so hard to level up, TSK, still congratulating. What are you congratulating me for? A wave of beast pressure assaulted them without any warning. Ian fell from the tree and Oratin, who was eating, crashed his bowl onto the ground. Barit, who was sitting beside Gu Mengmeng, also fell to the ground. Even Leo was not spared. He stumbled and almost fell into the pot. Gu Mengmeng looked at Wabi. Little shit, what's wrong with you? Wobbly-Eye glanced at Ian lazily and said, I'm not happy that someone is talking back to you in front of me. Gu Meng Meng chuckled and slapped Wobbly-Eye on the shoulder. Aren't you the one who deases me the most? Wobbly-Eye straightened his neck and said, that's different. I am the strongest, so I can fight you. Scum who can't even beat me, what right does he have to talk back to you? So what you mean is that you will protect those who are weaker than you and ignore those who are stronger than you. Gu Meng Meng stared at Wobbly-Eye with widened eyes. Wobbly-Eye nodded without hesitation. That's right. When Snake tortured you in the past, I didn't dare to make a sound. Chapter 1080. Wobbly-Eye was dizzy from Gu Meng Meng's shaking. He raised his hand to smack her on the head and pushed her far away. What are you shaking for? My head is spinning. Is your brain filled with sh*t? In the entire beast world, only Snake was more powerful than me, but you took him in. Now, you are the only one more powerful than me. If you really want to put on a show of bashing yourself, what else can I do other than to sit by the side and watch? Go up and give you 2 slaps and say you are not allowed to bash yourself. Gu Meng Meng's head was red from the smack, but she was not angry. She suddenly laughed out loud and took a step forward. She lifted Wobbly-Eye's chin with an evil smile. Little baby, how did you know that my mind was filled with you just now? Wobbly-Eye felt a chill run down his spine. He was a cold-blooded animal and could not feel the cold, but this was the first time he felt as though his bones were frozen. Waves of nausea churned in his stomach. He raised his leg to kick Gu Meng Meng, but she beat him to it and stepped on his ankle, pressing him down. Gu Meng Meng was clearly very skinny, but her strength was not just for show. Especially when she was hitting Wobbly-Eye, she did not hold back at all. Wobbly-Eye was immobilized by Gu Meng Meng. Damn, he felt as though he was an emperor being countered by a weak attacker. So damn ashamed. The bumps all over his body fell to the ground. Wobbly-Eye glared at Gu Meng Meng fiercely. Get lost. Who the hell are you calling little baby? You are the little baby. Your entire tribe is little baby. Little shit. Are you shy? Ha ha ha. Gu Meng Meng suddenly had a wicked sense of humor. She laughed sinisterly like a thief. Ha ha ha, go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will come to help you. Wobbly-Eye stiffened his neck and howled. Hey, little wolf. Your female is in heat. Why aren't you bringing her back to the cave to settle it? Don't let her out to harm others. Gu Meng Meng did not give off any scent of the fox's seductive fragrance, she was not in heat at all. Elvis and Leah knew this very well. Moreover, the smile on Gu Meng Meng's face was really, not related to lust at all. That was the expression of a little demon pranking someone. In this world, Wobbly-Eye was probably the only one who could argue with Gu Meng Meng like this without Elvis and Leah feeling the slightest bit jealous. Elvis, who was singled out, chuckled and said, You are powerful and loyal to Xiao Meng. If she has the intention to accept you, it will be a good thing for our family. I don't oppose it. I advise you to give in. You can't win against her anyway. Wobbly-Eye's fangs began to tremble. F***K. What kind of family was this? Turning his head to look at Leah, Wobbly-Eye said, Hey, coquettish fox, hurry up and control your female. Your female is crazy. But Leah waved his tail and said coquettishly, my heart is still pounding from the beast pressure you released just now. I will slow down, you hang in there first, good luck, I have high hopes for you, Gu Meng Meng laughed out loud. She gripped Wobbly-Eye's arms tightly with both hands and stepped on his legs. And because Wabi was sitting down, Gu Mingming's entire body was like a slanted board, forming a right triangle with Wabi. She grinned so hard that her eyes were squinted and she even raised her brows at Wabi. Aside from the topic, that's all for today's update. See you tomorrow. There shouldn't be any problems with teasing little shit, right? Chapter 1081. Wabi had no choice but to admit defeat. Gu Mengmeng, you are my ancestor. I was wrong, alright. Can you clear your F***king head? Gu Mengmeng pushed Wabi to stand up. She clapped her hands. Tisk, so boring. Admitting defeat so quickly. Wabi flexed his wrist, which had almost been broken by Gu Mengmeng. He said fiercely, if I don't admit defeat, I will not be able to keep my chastity in my old age. Are those two in your family not enough to satisfy you? Why don't you consider taking in 2 more strong partners to fill the emptiness? I think those 3 are not bad. Wabi casually pointed at Barit, Oriton and Ian. Ian was the first to explode. You are giving something that you don't even want to me. Wabi narrowed his eyes. You are just a bird and you dare to despise the saintess of our Snake King Valley. You must be tired of living. Ian's face was flushed red but he could not say a word. He could not refute. Although he could fly, Wabi could easily slap him down from the sky with his beast pressure. He could not beat him. Oriton said in a low voice, if food is included. I don't mind. Leah chuckled. I mind. Let me tell you, you better not have any designs on my Gu Mengmeng. Otherwise, I will make sure you have no cooked food to eat for the rest of your life. Oriton nodded his head cautiously and said, don't worry, I am only interested in food. As for females. Oriton looked at Gu Mengmeng seriously, but still shook his head and said, I feel that females are not as attractive as a plate of roasted meat. The Great Messenger is a little special. Probably 3 days' worth of rations, no more. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Damn it. Previously, Sandy had pushed her out of solder for a portion of fruits. Now, Oriton was stabbing her in the back. Losing to roasted meat was so depressing. She felt like she was in a daze. Barit remained silent. He knew this was a joke. A joke that made him feel suffocated. He desperately wished it was real. Unfortunately, a joke was just a joke. Apart from him, no one would take it seriously. So Barit lowered his head and sat quietly on the spot. He tried to calm his surging emotions from Wabi's casual pointing. He, unworthy. The noisy dinner ruined the quiet night, and the cave, which had not been inhabited for a long time, seemed to have warmed up a lot. When Gu Mengmeng returned to the cave to sleep, it was already dawn. This was the good thing about the cave. There were no windows. As long as she lived in it, the time outside would not affect her. Gu Mengmeng, who had planned to have a good sleep for a day and a night, was woken up by someone when she was deep in her dreams. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Ever since she inherited Snake's ability, her hearing was as good as having a loudspeaker in her ears. Even the slightest movement could be heard clearly. This obvious fighting sound was like a series of kicks being thrown into her ears. Gu Mengmeng sat up abruptly and realized that Elvis and Leah were no longer in the cave. Needless to say, the ones fighting at the door were definitely the 2 of them. Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and walked out in an aggressive manner. As she walked, she hollered, sparing people from their dreams is like killing their parents. Damn it, which one of you doesn't want to live anymore? How dare you disturb my sleep? The fighting sound stopped abruptly. Elvis and Leah ran in together. One hugged Gu Mengmeng firmly while the other hurriedly handed her a cup of water. After all, Chapter 1082. Gu Mingming's entire body was emitting a dark aura. The lack of sleep had caused her to be in an extremely bad mood. The moment she came out of the cave, the sunlight was blinding. Elvis's large hands gently covered her eyes so that she could adapt to the light. Ever since she inherited Snake's abilities, her eyes were no longer the only way she could explore the world. Every cell in her body could tell her what was happening in places she could not see. Who are you? What's the matter? Gu Mingming's face accurately met with the people causing trouble at her door. Her teeth chattered loudly. Gu Mingming's voice was clearly gentle, but it made those few people shudder in fear, as if they had been frozen into ice under the scorching sun. Great messenger, we. Those people were so frightened by Gu Mingming's anger that their stomachs cramped up. Damn, they had been stray beasts for so many years and had done all kinds of dirty deeds. They had gone through so many life-and-death battles and faced countless near-death situations, but they had never felt so scared before. Indeed, bad people should stick to their character. It was much easier to snatch things than to give them away. Damn, it was really hard to be a good person. It was too scary. The gap between Elvis's fingers gradually opened, allowing the sunlight to land on Gu Mingming's eyes. Gu Mingming could already see the huge stone basins behind the stray beasts. They were filled with grapes. Raising her brows, Gu Mingming felt strangely less annoyed. Her tone also became better, but she was still a little lazy. She rested her forehead on Elvis's shoulder and glanced sideways at the orcs who had come to deliver the gifts. These are for me. Who asked you to deliver them? Great Lord Cole asked us to deliver. The stray beasts also felt very aggrieved. They did not back down when they were fighting Elvis just now, but now they could not even straighten their tongues in front of Gu Mingming. TSK, although she had guessed it, she was still in a bad mood. Rolling her eyes, she said, "Take them away, I don't want Cole's things." With that, Gu Mingming turned her head back to Elvis's shoulder, indicating that she wanted to return to the cave to continue sleeping. Upon seeing Gu Mingming's reaction, the stray beast immediately said, "But these fruits were personally plucked by young master. Sir Cole is only helping young master to deliver them. Great messenger, please don't waste young master's filial piety." Gu Mingming paused and turned to look at the stray beast. Seeing that he was stuttering from the very beginning, this sentence came out so smoothly. Someone must have taught him, right? Young master. Gu Mingming did not bother about who had taught him to say that sentence, because she did not need to ask to know, and she did not want to hear that name again. The stray beast saw that Gu Mingming had indeed stopped in her tracks after following Cole's instructions. Even her reaction was exactly as Cole had predicted. He felt more assured and did not stutter so much. He nodded and replied, "Yes, young master Qi. Gu Mingming frowned. She was in a very bad mood. She did not want Qi to have anything to do with Cole, but Qi had been kept by Cole's side for so long that even the stray beasts had to call Qi young master. What the f***ck? Qi was not Cole's son. But there was no point in talking to these small fries. Gu Mingming clenched her fists and said, "I know, leave the things here and scram." Chapter 1083. Gu Mingming squatted beside the few big basins of grapes and reached out to pinch one before sending it into her mouth. Elvis snatched the grape away from Gu Mingming's lips and with a nimble tongue, he sent the grape into his mouth. After chewing for a while, he said, "The taste is very mild, but it was indeed plucked by Qi. But since it was sent by Cole's men, I have to be on guard. You can only eat it if I am fine before nightfall, understand?" Gu Mingming said helplessly, "Have you forgotten that I have snake's poison in my body? In the entire beast world, I am the most poisonous person. Other poisons cannot harm me at all. Even if there is poison, it will be neutralized by snake's poison. Elvis tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "If you have nothing to fear, be careful of being taken advantage of. Leah and I cannot afford to take any risks." Gu Mengmeng was helpless and had no other choice. These two people were overly protective of her and could not bear to see any harm befall on her. And she rather enjoyed this protection, so she did not say much and just asked Elvis to put her down before asking him and Leah to carry the grapes into the cave. Gu Mengmeng was not fully awake, and now that the annoying fellows were gone, she naturally returned to the cave to catch up on her sleep. She slept all the way until the afternoon. Leo was afraid that she was hungry and entered the cave after cooking. He laid beside Gu Mengmeng and used his furry large tail to lightly brush her arm. His gentle gaze landed on Gu Mingming's defenseless little face, and he could not help but peck her lightly. He called out gently beside her ear, "Mengmeng, I am so bored. Don't sleep, open your eyes and look at me, mmm. Mmm." Gu Mengmeng hummed and instinctively hugged Li's tail, turning around and burrowing into Li's arms. Li's arms were filled by Gu Mengmeng and his heart was also filled to the brim. His voice unconsciously became softer and softer, like a gentle breeze blowing past. His slender and bony hands were in Gu Mingming's hair. Her silky hair was as smooth as black silk, coiling around his fingers gently. "All right, I'll hug you until you want to get up." Kissing the top of her head, Leah chuckled. "I really don't know what to do with you." She did not know if it was because Li's gaze was too hot or because Gu Mengmeng had had enough sleep, but after a while, Gu Mengmeng raised her head and gave him a sweet smile even before she opened her eyes. Her voice was a little hoarse and carried the unique tenderness of a morning. It was just one word, but it moved the corners of Li's lips. He pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "I was afraid that you would be hungry and hoped that you would wake up earlier. I also yearned for your dependence and wanted you to sleep a little longer in my arms. I really don't know what to do with you." Gu Mengmeng smiled as she buried her face into Li's chest and rubbed against it. "Yeah, I'm really hungry." Leah carried Gu Mengmeng up from the bed and carried her out of the cave. As he walked, he said, "The food has already been prepared, just waiting for you to wake up." Gu Mengmeng was still hugging Li's tail in her arms. After waking up, she was like an angel, radiating a bright and gentle light. She was the complete opposite of the little demon she was in the morning. Chapter 1084. Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Elvis, who chuckled as he sat beside her. "I saw that the table in Sauter's stone castle was quite suitable for you. It was troublesome to move it around, so I made one for you while you were asleep. Do you like it?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. "Although it is delicious to eat by the fire, I still prefer to sit at the table properly." Elvis had already noticed this, so he made a table for her the moment he came back. "I will make a smaller one and place it in the cave. This way, you can eat at the table during winter." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head gently. He would give her whatever she wanted. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Then she looked at Oratin, who was circling around Li's stone pot, and Barit, who was standing in the shade and staring at his toes. "Since you are here, come and sit here." There were 3 stone stools on each side of the rectangular table. The one in the middle was covered with a thick layer of beast skin. It was obviously Gu Mingming's seat. Elvis and Li's seats were naturally on the left and right of the table. Wabi was already seated in the middle of the 3 stone stools opposite them. Although he did not care much about these cooked foods and the portions were too small, he still enjoyed eating with Gu Mengmeng. He felt that there should be a seat for Snake on this table. Since Snake was not around now, he would occupy the seat for Snake first. Oratin and Barit sat on the left and right of Wabi. Meanwhile, Leah directly placed the large stone pot on the table and distributed their own bowls. It's still the most comfortable to eat at my own place. After eating her fill, Gu Mengmeng stretched lazily and leaned into Elvis's arms. She watched as Oriton cleaned the cutlery without any prompting. Meanwhile, Leo went into the house to take out a large plate of grapes and fed them to Gu Mengmeng one by one. Leo was a witch doctor and was from the same snow fox tribe as Cole. If he dared to feed Gu Mengmeng, it meant that there was nothing wrong with the grapes themselves. Moreover, Elvis had eaten some himself and did not show any adverse reactions, so Elvis did not insist on waiting until night time to eat these grapes. After Gu Mengmeng ate 2 grapes, her eyes suddenly rolled. "Grapes, little shit, you have to help me with something." Gu Mengmeng sat up abruptly and raised her brows at Wabi. After yesterday's teasing, every time Wabi saw Gu Mengmeng smile at him, his hair would stand on end. Crossing his arms in front of his chest, he leaned back and looked at Gu Mengmeng warily. "What?" Gu Mengmeng slammed the table and roared, "Put your claws down, don't look like you're forcing me to be a prostitute, alright?" Wabi stiffened his neck. "Do you think I should take it down just because you want me to? Do you think I don't want face?" Gu Mengmeng clicked her tongue in disdain and said, alright, you can just maintain this defiled look and stay there. It's up to you." Wabi's temples throbbed. What did she mean by defiled? Why does it sound so awkward? He glared at Gu Mengmeng and said, "What exactly do you want me to do? Say it quickly." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.